Hi, welcome. I am Bethany Evans, one of the hosts of Woke Wild Women's podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't watched our introduction video, please go do that. It's a quick video just letting you know what the podcast is about, giving you a little bit more in-depth information. So today I'm going to be interviewing the other host of our podcast. And her name is Roxanne Sailors. Roxanne, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being on. So the whole purpose of this podcast is to talk to woke wild women and what we're up to in the world, and talk about our connection to nature-based spirituality and how that shows up in our lives. So we're just going to jump right in and talk to Roxanne. And so why don't you tell us about your backstory and what got you to this moment and how you identify as a woke wild woman?
Okay. There are so many elements of my my story that I think influenced who I am now. But just to kind of highlight some of the bullet points, I'm an only child of an only child. I am a child of divorce. My parents, I knew from an early age that my parents shouldn't be together. I used to fantasize about my parents getting divorced so we could all be happy. But they didn't actually get divorced until I was in my teens, which I think set me on my own path of like what are relationships. And also I was raised in a very loving and insular religious community. It was my first experience with spirituality and with community, and it had a huge impact on how I see the world. And I think in a lot of ways, I am still trying to recreate that sense of community that I had as a child in my world today. However, the religious doctrine and dogma of organized religion really made me feel unseen, and like there were parts of me that were shameful or that weren't appropriate, or people just didn't understand. And so I held a lot of it in for a long time, and I'm still practicing letting those bits and pieces out. So I think going through my own journey, I got married very young, had 2 children right away. I never really wanted to be a mom until I had my kids, and then I realized it was the most important job that I will ever have in my life. To this day, it's still, when my kids call and they want to talk to their mom, I feel just immeasurably honored. I also feel the weight of responsibility of being a parent, which can be really scary at times too. My birth experiences were kind of cautionary tales about hospital births, and but it really set me on a path of understanding what birth is about and seeing the world through the lens of birth. I got divorced from their dad and eventually remarried. I've been married for 10 years now, celebrated my 10-year anniversary. And it doesn't get any easier. Relationships continue to evolve, and as I evolve, my relationships evolve. So it's just a constant, what I have come to understand is life is just a constant rebirthing of who you are and of what you want to create in relationships, in business, in your own personal development. And so that's kind of bullet points. What else? What else do I want you to know? But yeah, my spiritual journey, what started when I was really young. I was in our church. You could take communion at 8 and become a full-fledged member of the church. We had to go through classes to understand what it meant to be a member of that church and what their version of Christianity was or is. And there were a lot of really great things about, and still are, about that particular organization. But the one thing that I kept getting tripped up on was that the whole idea of Jesus coming to save us from being sinful, and that we were sinful because we're human.
Mm.
But God made us. So how it just never, and I kept asking that question, and I, from time and time again, both my parents and my step parent and my half sister are all preachers in that same church. So I come from a long line of people who are very spiritual and who are spiritual seekers. And nobody could answer my question about that. How can we be sinful if we are the child of God?
Yeah.
And it never sat with me, but I wanted to be part of the group. So I went ahead and I became a member, and said, yes, I'm a Christian, even though I don't believe that anybody needs to die to save me from myself.
To save me from myself.
So, and that was the nugget that had me always searching. And I would say, not in-depth studied, but I've looked into so many different religions, just looking for how they answer that. Who are we as humans? And what is it to be divinely human?
Yeah.
And there's some fascinating stuff out there.
Mhm.
But ultimately, I recognize that the thing that brings me most in line with my divinity is being in nature and
Mm.
observing the patterns of nature. And birth is part of nature. It is at its element. I mean, things are being birthed constantly,
Mhm.
whether it's birds or plants or fungi or humans or mountains,
Yeah.
just it's all this constant taking bits and pieces, putting them together and creating something new.
Yeah.
So that is my spirituality. I think I've been woke in many different areas of my life, and I continue to awaken to new areas. And yeah, I think that's it for now. There's so many interesting stories that I love telling people
Right.
about my life experience, but they'll come out eventually.
Right. And it's funny because we've tried to record, an introduction multiple times, and each time
Yeah.
we say different things. And so I hear new things from you that I haven't heard before, and I love it.
Totally.
Just hearing about your experience with your church and all of that. It's fascinating, and I think it's really important to talk about those things, and how, as children, how we are so impressionable, and each child takes it differently, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I love just every time we talk, there's the new things. I hear new things, new so it's like I'm hearing your story for the first time too.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So yeah, if you don't have any more to talk about with your backstory, like what can you say about what you're creating right now?
Um, what am I creating right now? I'm creating a lot of space in my life. I
Mhm.
am in a transitional period. I've been in transition for the last, I've been in transition all my life. We're always
We're always
transitioning
in transition.
yes, as we are evolving. I want to put in here real quick too about tarot, because that is something that you and I connected on, and that is a part of my spiritual practice. And
Yeah.
one of the things I love about tarot is in a lot of the imagery and understandings of the tarot, you're going through a journey. You've got the beginning and you've got the end, and the end and the beginning looks startlingly similar, because we are always, as something is ending, there's always something beginning.
Yeah.
And it's that ever constant motion. And we do find moments where we feel stable and secure and grounded. And they're all just moments.
Yeah.
So for me, I am
Try to hold on to
recognized.
those moments.
Yes. And then those moments that it's like, it sucks. It's like, it's just a moment. It will
Yeah.
pass. And
Right.
that has been my mantra for the
Mhm.
last couple of months, like this discomfort of not knowing what the fuck is happening in my life, and that I created this turmoil. I don't want to call it turmoil, but this energy, because I quit my job. I quit a stable job where I was for the most part, I had purpose. I believe in the company. I believe in what they're doing. And I knew that I was not being utilized to the highest and best good for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so I chose to step away. I also saw a lot of potential for other people that couldn't be realized if I was there.
Mm-hmm.
So I left that job. I left the security of having a regular income. I left that sense of independence that I bring in an income. I am now financially reliant on my husband, which is scary and also liberating.
Yeah.
And I feel guilty and relieved at the same time.
Yeah.
But we both agreed to it in service to this greater good that I need to step into my purpose more fully.
Yeah.
So on that note, I am continuing to teach fitness classes. So I am a movement embodiment coach, teaching people how to get into their bodies and out of their heads, into their heart, and listen to what their body has to tell them.
Mm-hmm.
And I clean houses, which I know sounds really, I don't know, there's a lot of stigma around it. It's actually a meditation. It's an act of service. I know how much I would have loved to have somebody come in and take care of me like that when I had, 2 kids and I was a single mom and all that stuff. And it also allows me the opportunity to just be with my thoughts. So when I'm not doing those 2 things to earn an income, I am building a tribe of women. I'm building a retreat with you, Bethany,
Yes.
to create a container for women to come and be in their own birth process, whether it's birthing a creative idea, birthing a new version of themselves, just being in that sacred pause of not having to do something and just allow things to evolve and become.
Yeah.
And I am birthing a book, which is what is on for me in the months. I declare.
Nice.
It's big and scary, and at the same time, it's like I just need to sit down and just do it. It's there. So that's what I'm up to. That's what I'm creating in the world, and continuing to develop my relationships. I spend a lot of time thinking about my relationships with people and what they need, what they bring, what the challenges are in those relationships, and what those challenges are telling me about myself.
Yeah.
And if you listen to our intro, you'll know that I went through a coaching program, spoke a lot in the program about my wounded, my relationship wounds with friends. And so these last 2 years, I have developed a really strong connection with 2 amazing women who are in so many ways very similar and very different from me.
Mm-hmm.
And just learning to trust relationships.
Yeah.
And that is also coming up in my marriage as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I could talk for a long time about just what I'm learning. I could also
That'll be a topic for another another recording.
Yeah. But I think and helping people to navigate relationships as a mirror for what's happening inside. And I think that is such important work. And I think it's really important for us to create a container, us, you and me, to create a container where we can talk about what's really, truly important to us and to allow ourselves to be and be seen and be all of ourselves outside of what we're creating, and more than what we're creating, but like what we're doing for other people, what we're doing for work. Who are we if we didn't have any of that?
Right. I know, because I think, we feel like we have to show up a certain way and we do have to show up a certain way, like for a job. You can't go to a job or be with a client or go, you know, like it and be like a mess, you know, like just be be all in your emotions. And so it's about like there are times where you kind of have to like shut that stuff off and just show up. And like when you're a parent too, it's like it's never convenient. When they need something, you have to be that strong support for them because they don't know what they're doing. You know what I'm saying? They have no idea. Like they need us to like help guide them and explain to them what's happening for them. So it's like we can't show up and mirror them in their crazy emotions. So it's like having that space to then show up exactly how you are feeling inside. You know, it's like this, I couldn't show up this way here, but now I have this safe container, community support. And I just want to say everything that's been in my mind or, you know, in my heart or what I'm feeling. And even it may sound crazy or it may sound like selfish or it may sound, you know, like I'm a bitch, but this is how I'm feeling. Blah. I just need to get it out. Yeah.
And I think we as women are so adept at that. Some of it's, I think, socialized into us. That's kind of what is expected of women. And at the same time, it's also looked down upon.
Yeah.
So it's like, go be this, but we're gonna judge you for it.
Yeah.
Go be this so we can judge you.
Yeah.
So, you know, I forgot to mention I'm also a doula.
If you watch our introduction, we do talk more about what we do. So please watch that if you haven't.
But, you know, as a doula too, that's so much of what we do. We just allow a woman to be fully present with all of the stuff.
Yes.
So that they can do the work that they need to do, which is creating.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what, like you said, what society doesn't allow us to do is to just be what we're feeling inside, you know? And sometimes it's not so pretty. And that's why we need other women who understand what we're experiencing, to hold that space and be like, yeah, do it, girl. You want to be angry, be angry. Like you want to be, you know, sad, be sad, but just don't allow that to completely control your life. I think that's like where, you know, we want to allow people to, or women to feel what they're feeling, but we also have to hold them accountable for like, okay, it's time to let that go. You know what I'm saying? And move on and move through it. And I think
that's purpose.
Right. And I think that's where some people get stuck too, is they hold on to all of these uncomfortable emotions, like a security blanket, rather than releasing them and realizing you can just let them go. And like you said, there's a purpose. Like with a woman, we all have a cycle and we have phases that we go through, and we're meant to experience these things and release them so that we can become stronger and wiser and you know, show up differently in the world, you know, as we evolve.
Yeah.
I
also have a cat.
Yeah.
Shiloh will probably make an appearance. If I'm sitting, she will come see me. So
I just said that the other day, is the black cat is the witch's best friend.
Yes, I know. It's funny. I've had I grew up with a cat. Side note, this is also a natural part of our podcast. We get off on tangents.
Yeah.
But I grew up with a cat. Never had dogs. That's a whole other story. I have dog story. But when I was married, that was the first thing I wanted to do when we finally kind of got settled where we were at after we had our kids, is I wanted a cat. So we got a cat, and then we got another cat, and then we got another cat.
You were the crazy cat family.
Yes, and a dog, and a spider, and a bird. And
a spider?
Yeah. My ex-husband is, he loves tarantulas.
Tarantula? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Anyway, that was just one of the things my now husband said he was allergic to cats. And after my kids left, I was like just yearning for somebody else in this house that wouldn't be in my way too much, wouldn't require too much of me.
Right.
So
perfect for that.
Yeah. So we adopted this very neurotic cat. She and I are very similar. We have anxiety disorders. That we're learning to organize, so they're not so disordered.
Yes, you're supporting each other and getting over that.
Yeah. Awesome. So she's a very sweet kitty, but I you know, and I'm drawn to black cats. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's the witch in me.
Yep, exactly. We will talk about witchy things on this
Yes,
podcast as well.
for
Um,
sure.
yeah, which I'm super excited about, just diving deep into different topics. Anyways, okay, so let's get back to you.
Okay.
What are some of your daily practices that allow you to tap into your essence?
Well,
And by
as we
essence,
have,
I was going to say, and by essence, I mean who you truly are at your core, who you know, not how you sometimes show up or think that you are, right? Because I think there's a difference, and I think that's important to talk about.
yeah. Well, one of the things we did in our transformational ontological coaching program
Mhm.
was to identify some keywords that would help us tap into our essence. I did that work before I went into the coaching program because I was being coached by an ontological coach, and those words still ring true for me. And when I do get caught up in I'm not producing enough, I'm making no money, blah blah blah, my essence is well, my purpose in the world is creation, which I think is very apropos, being that I'm a woman.
Mhm.
But I'm also in a lot of fields where I do create a lot of stuff. Um, uh, and so tapping into my essence, which is wisdom, vitality, unity,
Mm.
vision, and heart. Those are my 5 keywords that really bring me back to myself. And when I'm not feeling aligned with those words, that's where I get to do the work of realigning myself, so I do feel like that is what I'm up to in the world, and that is what's emanating from me.
Yeah.
So to get into that space, I do a number of different things. I do yoga. I do. I swing heavy things.
Doing heavy things.
Steel mace and club bells. Look it up. I do
I
a
really
lot
want
of,
to try that. When I'm there
yeah.
visiting you, I need you to I want to see if I can lift it.
Oh, you totally can. You
Okay.
totally can. The magic comes when you actually are dancing with gravity. So
Mm.
when you're actually feeling the centrifugal force of this weighted object that's displaced, it's a displaced. Oh, I keep forgetting the displaced center of mass. So
Mm.
you've got this mass. It's displaced from your hand. It's out here, and then you swing it around, and it pulls. So
Oh,
it creates a lot of
like resistance,
strength. What's that?
like resistance. So it's like you have to make sure that you're
Yeah, you're pulling it.
counterbalancing. Yeah.
Yeah, and you've got
Got
to
it.
pull it just right so that when you flick it up, you can actually catch it and it doesn't smack
Ah.
you in the face,
Oh, fuck.
which I've done.
Oh
Or you swing it and make sure that your shoulders lock so that you don't smack your feet, which I've done.
no. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean it's pretty exciting, but it gets me right out of my head,
Yeah.
because if you're trying to think about all the mechanics, because we learn the mechanics in our head, and
Right.
then we practice bringing that knowledge from your head into your body
Yeah.
until you're not even thinking about it, you're just feeling it, and it's
Yes.
amazing. But it is one of my favorite things to get me back into myself. Hiking or walking in nature, that rhythmic, just
Mhm.
left, right, is another way. I read tarot cards in the morning for myself most mornings. And I notice when I don't read tarot cards, it's when I am in opposition with myself, and
Mhm.
I'm being an obstinate child, where I'm just like stomping my foot and being like, I don't want to be enlightened.
I love it.
So, and and that happens. I mean, it's
Yeah.
happened the last 2 days. I have not read my cards because I'm like, it's not going to tell me anything I don't know. It's going to
Right?
just,
It's the same
yeah,
thing. Yeah.
yeah,
Same message every day. I already heard you, spirit.
yeah. Which is, oh, it's crazy too when the same cards keep coming up over and over, or the
Oh
same
God.
message. Might be a different card, but it has basically the same message,
Oh
which,
yeah.
yeah. And I'm like,
How many
fuck
decks do you
you.
have? Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. Fuck you. Okay, I heard it. All right. Thank you, but fuck you.
Yeah.
How
I
many?
only have, I have 2. I used to have like 5, and I never used any but one. And I don't know why. I love the idea. I love all your decks. They're gorgeous.
I have many.
You do, and I love it. And I love that you can just tap into any particular one, and you intuitively know which one you need to use.
Mm-hmm.
But I use the Gaian Tarot deck, which is very very close to my heart because I know and used to work with the author and artist for many years. And she drew inspiration from her community, which is our Wiccan community here, our pagan community, I should say. And so it's funny, I'll be doing cards. I'm like, oh, look, there's Lee. Oh, look, there's Shell.
Yeah.
As we pull these cards up. So, and it's earth centered. So rather than it being the traditional deck, she uses fire, air, earth, and water. So again, that speaks much more to me. So it's easier for me to I don't have to translate it. It just kind of goes straight through.
Yeah.
And then the women's.
You always forget the name of it, don't you?
You know it because you were with me when I bought it.
I know. Okay. I was curious if that was the other one that you kept.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I don't even remember it. Wise.
Yeah,
is it wise? Does it have wise in it?
Maybe, or women's intuition, women's wisdom.
Women's, I don't know.
But anyway, it's an oracle deck.
Yeah.
And I love that it's a collaboration of female artists who drew these pictures and created the message around each picture.
Yeah.
So
I love that too. I think that's so cool.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that in itself, the fact that it's women-centered, that it is collaborative, and that it's an oracle deck. So it's got a little bit more of a free form to it. It's just got a really clear message each card. So I use both of those together every morning, most mornings. What else do I do? I think really so much, it's just creating the intention that, okay, this thing that I'm going to do is going to get me back into, get me recentered. So sometimes it's dance, sometimes it's singing, sometimes it's listening to music and just letting the music come into me.
I am a musician. I was going to say, I don't know if I don't know if you mentioned that
I didn't, because I'm not a practicing professional musician. I was a professional musician for about 20 years. Retired, the band retired, and that's again a whole other story. But I have really missed it. I don't think I told you this, but life happens so magically. I was cleaning house for a new client who is a new musician. He's retired, and so that's his thing now that he's retired, is he likes to play music. He's teaching himself, I think, how to play the piano and the bass, and he has jam sessions twice a month, and he invited me.
Oh, cool.
So I'll be doing that starting in October, every first and third Monday or something like that.
Awesome.
But and it was one of those, I had said something earlier that day about, and I always say I miss making music. But I was like, I think it's time for me to find some sort of outlet. And I'm just like, I don't know what that is. Is it karaoke? Is it inviting people to my house? I don't want to be responsible for organizing. That was partly why the band eventually we decided to retire, because it's really hard to get a group of creative-minded people together.
Yeah.
Focus enough to put together a performance. And I love making music, but I really love performing. Yeah. There's something magical that happens when you are creating something that you've practiced, but it's still, you're creating it in the moment. It's more than creating a recording. Live music, creating live music for a live audience is different every single time. Sometimes it's 4 hours of just really hard work, and sometimes it is like I will be high the entire time, totally sober.
Yeah.
Maybe a beer or two, but no, but seriously, so high from that energy that I create with my fellow bandmates and that we put out to the audience, and then the audience receives it and gives it back. It's so crazy cool.
That co-creation.
Yeah. So anyway, making music can be really, really a spiritual experience.
Totally.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just snuggling with my cat. I am a sucker for rom-coms.
Mm.
And also, like, I mean, I love TV and movies. Again, it's just another performance. It's telling a story. It's creating the idea of creating a feeling,
Yeah.
creating an idea that you put out to the world that they can then, take and do with what they want. So I
Like
am,
meant to evoke certain things, right? That's
yeah,
what people write stories. It's like it's meant to evoke certain emotions or have somebody feel a certain way. And it's cool because everyone gets something different from it, right? And
yeah.
that you're right. It's really just a story to tap into and to, yeah, to either teach us something or help us work through something. There's always, I feel like, a reason behind why people tell stories.
Yeah. And especially on TV shows, you get to see the relationship between people and how they deal with different personalities. And
Right.
so it teaches us a lot about human behavior.
Yes.
And
But
yeah,
also it's
and
like super dramatic and sometimes like ridiculous. So it's like you're like, okay, I feel so much better about my life. Like
yeah,
this
yes,
doesn't really happen in real life, right? Because they like exaggerate things so much.
yeah,
Sometimes
yeah,
that's how I feel. I'm like, okay, I feel better about my life now.
yes. Yeah, and the older I get, it's funny, the movies that used to really touch me when I was younger, I look at now and I'm like, oh, look at the dysfunction there.
Like, oh, and now I know why I related to that, at that time, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
So anyway, I'm my current obsession, and it comes and goes because there's 8 seasons, and I'll watch a couple seasons and then I forget that it's out there. But I'm catching up on Call the Midwife,
Oh,
which I love that movie. It's somewhat nostalgic. My mother is very British Canadian, and I was raised on a lot of British traditions and ideologies, and just the kind of practicality of the British.
mm-hmm.
And yeah, so it's nostalgic for me because it reminds me of my mom in a loving way.
Yeah.
And it also taps into, I mean, it's a story about midwives, and there's
Yeah.
always births. And so births, of course, just the magic of birth always makes me cry.
Yeah.
And so it's also a great, watching movies and TV shows or even YouTube videos are a great way to just tap into your emotions. I think as
Yeah.
women, um, and men too, but I think especially women, when we're crying, it's such a release.
Yeah.
And I think for myself, I tend to stop myself from crying a lot because I
Yeah.
don't want people to feel like that I need to be fixed.
Yeah. Yes.
Um,
You want somebody to
or that
see
I'm
you.
falling apart. I
Yeah.
mean, I can cry at a good cup of coffee. I
Yeah.
mean, I can tap into that, and it doesn't mean that I'm
Well, I
broken. It
cry
just
when I'm
means,
happy, like,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And I smile when I'm getting really angry too.
Right? You're
Just
like, please don't
I'm
piss me
going
off
to,
anymore.
yeah,
Yeah.
like I'm gonna say something really offensive right now because you just pissed me off.
Right. But I look so happy.
Funny.
Yeah.
Our bodies are crazy, and
Right?
just it's interesting how we respond. But yeah, I mean, like smiling, laughing, um, crying, they're all just emotions that need to be released.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
yeah, I love being able to provide that space for people to
Yeah.
just fall apart. I had again, off on a tangent, but this is part of what I'm up to in the world. My dear friend she's so great. When she has a meltdown, she just has a meltdown.
Yeah.
And she asks for help. I love that about her. And it's so
Yeah.
funny. She was having a meltdown. She called me in tears. Can you come help me? And I'm like, absolutely. She was 5 minutes down the road. I helped her with something. She was so grateful. And she's like, she she said something that really touched me. She said, you healed something in me today, to be able to reach out and ask for help and not be judged for it, not be told I'm wrong, not be rejected. You just
Yeah.
came and you didn't make me feel stupid for asking for help or for blubbering like a baby because I couldn't get a light bulb screwed in. It was
Oh.
something that like that.
Yeah.
Um and I'm like, just by showing up for somebody, you
Yeah.
can change something so deep in them.
Absolutely.
So for me, creating space in my life where I can be that for other people is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, and
that's what I want to do more of.
you've definitely been that for me. There's been
Thank you.
before we used to do Marco Polo a lot before we would like talk on the phone as much, but I mean I remember multiple times where I just show up on Marco Polo and just start crying to you as I'm telling you stories or whatever's happening in my life. And even though we're not talking live, I know you're like you're going to be watching it, and that's not easy for me to do, is to cry in front of other people. It's really not, especially women, for whatever reason. But yeah, so you've created that space for me, and I think you just do that naturally. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, so my practice now is to allow other people to do it for me.
Ah, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the thing. That was the final piece of that story, is that my girlfriend was like, and know that you can call on me whenever you need me, and I will be there in a heartbeat if I am, if I absolutely,
Can be, yeah.
yeah. So,
Oh, awesome.
yeah, and creating that safe space for people is pretty cool. And then being able to call on them. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Um, cool. Well, so let's go into the next question.
yes.
And I would like to ask you, what would you like to expand on to source you to create your unreasonable
Yes.
life?
I love the idea of an unreasonable life, because so often, especially now, having quit my job, the first thing is, that's not reasonable.
Yeah.
Get a job, make some money, and you can do your dream world, and in your spare time.
Mm-hmm.
So what do I want to expand on? I want to create community, a community of women. I want to expand this idea of tribe,
Yeah.
and tribal wisdom, um, creating that safe space. Um, what else? More nature time. I say that every fucking day. It's crazy. I have access to the most beautiful part of the world, in my personal opinion,
Mm-hmm.
um, with the exception of the San Diego beach.
Yes. Yes.
Because at the heart of who I am, I think I should live on a tropical island. But I live here in the Pacific Northwest, where it is rainy and wet and green. Beautiful mountains, amazing ocean shores, which are varied and striking. Um, so yeah, being able to create an opportunity for women who, and you and I have talked a little bit about this, you grew up in a pretty much urban community, so being out in nature looks different for you.
Yeah.
I do out backcountry backpacking, so I like get way out into nature, where like it's just me and usually a few of my friends, and wilderness,
Yeah.
literal wilderness.
Yep. Never been there before.
Yeah, right down
Never.
to having to
Literally
go.
never. I need you to take me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, right down to having to walk a half mile to get to a water source, and then clean your water so that you can actually drink it. And
Yeah. I think everyone should experience that at least once in their life. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yes.
You realize how dependent we become on certain things, like that instant
Yeah.
gratification, that, everything's at our fingertips. I think that's an awesome lesson.
Yeah. And the thing that I've learned from that too is, and now that I've done it several times, there's one specific, and you know about this, but I go to a specific place on the Washington coast. It's a 7-mile hike. Most of it's on the beach. Some of it's up and over. You have to climb rope ladders, and you've got everything that you need for however long you're going to be out there. We went for 5 days this year, which is the longest we've been out there, which means you have to carry all of your food for 5 days, unless
Oh
you
man.
have a fishing pole and are lucky enough to catch fish,
Yeah.
or you want to try and shoot a deer,
Yeah.
something insane.
Shoot a deer.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah.
Sure, no problem.
Sure, that
No,
sounds easy.
but realistically, it's a heavy pack, and you got to haul it all out there. But once I get out there, there is such a sense of peace,
Yeah.
because there are no distractions.
Mm-hmm.
Most of us don't get cell reception out there, or if we do, we have a very strict policy of you do not pull out your phone unless you're taking a picture.
Yes, yes. I
Um,
love it.
no, we don't even play music. We make sure that we're using live music. Usually someone hauls out a guitar, usually my husband.
Yeah.
So in
I love
fact,
that. I think
I
that's
gotta show this picture.
oh, cute.
That was our first year, and I don't know if you can see,
That's so cute.
he's got a guitar
His
strapped to the back.
I absolutely love that. That's
He's
amazing.
nuts. But yeah, and to be able to provide that opportunity for people to go out and do something like that, that's kind of scary and it's really hard.
Yeah.
But once you get out there, it's magical. It is magical.
Yeah.
It is the closest that I have experienced to the Garden of Eden, or Shangri-La, or any kind of that nirvana experience. And full disclosure, I do drugs, not heavy ones, but a lot of people go out there and they're high the whole weekend, which I've done, and it's awesome and magical. This last time I went, stone cold sober, not even alcohol, and it was just as magical because there's just something that so sources me being in nature and the pace of nature. As soon as I get out there, I take my shoes off and I turn off my phone, unless I'm taking pictures, but I make a concerted effort not to look at the time.
Yeah.
And so it's just, you get to check in with your body. Am I hungry? Am I sleepy?
Yeah.
How much water do we have? Do we need to go for water? Do we need to go for firewood?
Yeah.
What do I feel like doing now? I think I'm going to read. I think I'm going to draw. I think I'll swim naked in the ocean.
Yeah.
And it's just magical. So, I want more of that, and I want to create more of that for more people who want it. Mm-hmm. And to do it in a way that has them feeling like they're really stepping out of their comfort zone, but they're still held.
Yes, they're safe. I think that's, for someone like me who's never done anything like that before, I'm sure a lot of people who grew up probably, like in suburbia, it's really scary if you've never done it before and you want to go with people who have experienced it so you feel safe, right? Because you have to have an element of safety. Like there are some people who can just go on trips by themselves and be fine and go to a different country and not speak the language. And you know what I'm saying? That says a lot about the person being at home with themselves, right? And but for me, like I do need that. Like there's something like I struggle with feeling at home by myself in like a new situation. And I think a lot of people do. So yeah, I think that's awesome. You can create that for people.
Yeah. And more for myself.
Yes. And for yourself as well. Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think to answer that question, what would source me to create that unreasonable life is more people who are doing the same thing that I can relate to, that can inspire me, and that I can inspire them and feel like I am providing value for their experience.
Yeah, I love that. So this kind of ties into like the next question is like, what are some new and different experiences or activities you want to have or to do?
Let's see. Well, I've started taking up drawing. I've always said that I'm a terrible drawer.
Drawer.
And I just, one day I'm like, that's just a story.
Yeah.
I'm going to change that. Yep. And so I'm new at drawing.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm practicing that. Some new experiences. It's funny. Some people will reflect back to me that I'm very courageous, and I feel like I'm a big weenie. So when you say what new experiences, I'm like, I don't want anything new.
You are courageous. You are.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. So some new things, I would like to get into like pole dancing.
My friend and I were talking about that. I want to do that too.
Just getting into that, like really tapping into my sexuality. I think there's a lot for me to unpack there. I love speaking openly about sex and about what sex means. There are so many versions of sex. Our sexual identity, our sexual attraction, how we present ourselves, how we see ourselves,
Yeah.
how we pleasure ourselves, how we show up in sexual relationships with other people.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably, you know, and as I'm going into a new phase of my life, I would estimate that I'm probably somewhere in year 2, 3 of perimenopause, which is that long protracted transition into actual menopause. A lot of times it's like it's an effort to have to reinvent yourself.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that's something that I think is really scary but exciting for me. Um,
Yeah,
and
just
it's
getting to know your
definitely,
body again, as it's changing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and learning how to communicate what
Yeah.
I want with my husband, who I've been with for 13 years, who is very confident in knowing that he can get me off, but I'm like, yeah, but I want to try and do it a different way. But I've
Right.
got to say that,
Right.
and he's got to be able to hear that. So we're just learning a whole new way of it's very cumbersome right now.
Right. Because then you meet that you're probably met with some resistance of like, oh, but I thought I was doing it right, or I thought I was doing it good. And then stuff comes up for him where it's like, oh, now she's not pleased, and like all of that shows up. And I know that men, like I've just noticed recently, men like have pressure to perform, to, I mean, for one, they have to keep it up. Like, that's like a performance in and of itself, but then they also have to please us, right? Because it's all about pleasuring the woman. And so when they think they're not doing it well or right or whatever, it becomes then something that they make mean about themselves. I failed, or I suck, or and then that gets in the way of the relationship. And it's really just, you're just being honest. And I think that goes back to, I think, what we talked about, whether it was here in the introduction, about things are ever changing and we just keep evolving, which means we have new needs and new wants. And being in a relationship where you can communicate those things without it being meaning anything other than let's try this together is really cool. And that you're
Yeah,
willing to work on it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So that's probably, I don't know. I mean, I'm always up to try new things, and at the same time, I think uh, I'm reluctant to go out looking for them. I want to lean back and just let them come to me. And I don't know if that's
But that,
lazy or if that's just me
no,
practicing a different way.
that's feminine. So feminines are receptive. We are the ones who are magnetic and we draw things into us. Um, and the way and it's not like things just come to us and then that's all we have to do. Like, we do have to take action, but we have to take action on the things that do present to us. So we're so powerful that we just think or feel, we think and feel something that we want, we put it out into the universe then reflects that back to us, brings us opportunities, and it's up to us to then take action on those opportunities. So that's not lazy, it's actually brilliant. And that's what makes us feminine, right?
Yeah.
And then the way we come in with our masculine is when we take the action. And so I think that that's a really good step. And maybe sometimes we do just want to see what shows up, and maybe then when it does show up, we're like, oh, well, I don't think I want to do that anymore. Or I'm not, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
we actually, we have the free will to be like, okay, well, I choose not to take action on that.
Yeah.
And yeah, it doesn't have to be anything other than just a choice.
Yeah. And it's funny you mentioned that, because that's kind of how this drawing project came into being.
Mm,
I subscribed to a box called Lunarly. I love it.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, they send you a box of self-care and exploration items at the new moon.
Okay.
So not only does it tap you into the moon cycles,
Yeah.
so I'm really excited. My Lunarly box should be here any day, because the new
Oh,
moon is coming on Saturday, I believe.
you have to show me what's in it.
Yes, and every month it's a little bit different. But this last month, and it was just prior to the new moon, I was like, I'm looking for a new way to express myself artistically. And I love this. I love writing. I love language. I think language is fascinating, but I was looking for something that didn't involve language, because that's part of my block in my sexuality, is having to verbalize what I want.
Yeah.
So it's, and just like, again, if it shows up in one area of your life, it's probably showing up in other areas. So
Yeah.
I was like, I have a friend. Oh, so when we were out at Toliak at the where we go backpacking, a woman had brought out her acrylics and she was painting on the beach on a canvas. She brought the canvas and paints out, and I'm like, dang, that would be so cool to be able to do.
Yeah.
And as luck would have it, I got this book on learn how to draw flowers. So that's a great example of me just, internalizing this is something I want, and just allowing, like, opening that opportunity up and
Yeah.
seeing what shows up. And this book
Oh,
showed
yeah.
up, and I'm like, there we go.
Absolutely. And yeah, I think, and I've been noticing that in my own life too, is where things I just think about and I'm like, I really would love this opportunity, like, and it just like being open to how it shows up, right? And what the
Yeah,
universe is showing you, yeah, that's the power of the feminine, is just being able to think and feel and put it out and receive what we
yes,
ask for. And it's not just women who have that power, like men have that power as well. But yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. Well, cool. Anything else you'd like to experience, or what do you see happening in your near future?
Ooh, my future vision is to have weekend retreats, to be able to bring women into that tribal um, embrace.
Yeah.
And I know I mentioned this to you a couple of weeks ago, maybe, but The Red Tent, I recommend. It's a great book that is, it's a biblical based story, but it's a fictional story. But it's about, and the Red Tent was considered, that's where women went to bleed. That's why they
Yeah.
call it the Red Tent.
They're called
But
moon
it was,
lodges, I think, in some.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was just a place where women were able to be themselves however they needed, to get support, to support others. Yeah, anyway, that book is really great. But to create those kinds of experiences, not necessarily around bleeding or menstruation, or even around the lunar cycle, although that is very important to me.
Mhm.
But to create those spaces where we have this container to be able to show up however we need to, and to source ourselves and others. So that could look like weekend retreats, workshops. I'm working on a pre and postnatal embodiment program. I'm really getting out of alignment with the word fitness.
Mhm.
I think it's an outmoded word for what we do as fitness professionals.
Yeah.
I want
Like
to create it.
wellness, I feel like. Maybe.
Yeah, but yeah, so this program I want to develop is really to create a tribe of women who are in the process of birthing, prenatal and postnatal, to bring them into their bodies so that they can prepare for the work of birthing,
Yeah.
and then to bring them back into their bodies after they've gone through this amazing birth experience,
Yeah.
to experience what it's like now that they've been through that experience. And I'm
Yeah.
sure you can relate, the postnatal, that 6 to 8 weeks after you've given birth, it's like, holy shit, what just happened to my body?
Yeah. Yeah.
And will I ever be the same? Well, no, you'll never be the same, but you definitely will create a new and hopefully more embodied relationship with your body. So
Right.
I
Exactly.
want to create a, a container for that.
Beautiful.
And in doing so, also lend myself to the birthing community as a doula.
Nice.
So I would love to source some families in bringing their their child into the world, however is empowering for them.
Yeah.
So I've done hospital births, I've done home births. Um, I've been very grateful that they've all been live births.
Yeah.
I did have one that was in the hospital that ended up in cesarean, but just going through that experience, it just brings up so much for people, and I love being in that space, and I love to hold babies.
Yeah. Oh, God, I know, it's just the most pure source love energy you could ever experience. Yeah, that and animals, like dogs and cats. That's why people have
Yes,
dogs and cats. They're just pure
yes,
love.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful. Well, so what are some services that you offer right now locally, or, um, you know, things that people can contact you for if they want to work with you? What are some things you're
Well,
offering right now?
I'm always up for private coaching, always, whether that is embodiment practices, getting stronger, or healing from injuries or wounds. Obviously, doula services. I do teach group classes Monday and Wednesday evenings at Flex Movement Lab in Ferndale, supporting Ellie Margules, who is the owner of the lab. She's a new entrepreneur. She was Entrepreneur of the Year last year, I think. So things are always changing there. But for right now, Mondays and Wednesday evenings, I basically teach people how to dance with gravity with either a club bell or a mace. I post regularly on Instagram, inspiration, and I will have a website up. I'm not sure what the website is yet. Maybe by the time this actually airs, I will have it and it'll be in the show notes.
Yes.
But I do believe it'll be Roxy Flow. That's been my tag for a long time, because I love teaching people how to get into flow state, which is the union of mind, body, and spirit.
Yeah.
And you can get into flow in so many different ways. So yeah, that's what I'm up to.
Cool. Yeah. And so we will have all of her contact information below if you want to work with her. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we close?
I want to thank anybody who is listening or watching this at any time. I believe that time and space is just a construct.
Yeah.
So just by us putting this out, that it will reach the right people. I hope it has touched you. I hope it has sparked something in you. We would love to hear from you, both Bethany and I. And we invite you to keep listening, keep watching, and keep connecting with the people that are important to you, and keep evolving.
Great. I love that. If you don't connect with us, at least maybe it'll inspire you to connect with people in your own life, women or whoever, just to get that support. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. We love you all, and we're sending you so much support and love, and we'll talk to you soon. All right. Bye.
Bye.